this surprised me. Tennessee, their rivalry with Alabama is kind of non-consequential. You're going to have to convince me on this because to me, it's absolutely monstrous. So let's go ahead and get to that. What DH brought to you by friends at Herald Group Security Solutions.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
How many times in the last 30 years has this game cost the loser at a shot at a title? One team ranked while other unranked 48 of 83 eligible teams. One team finished ranked while other finished ranked ahead. So we'll get to all of those.
While one finished unranked, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to let you clarify them all. And it's all brought to you by Herald Group Security Solutions, leadership experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques, also making your children safer one school at a time. So give me the number one and why this doesn't really have a huge effect on ranking.
So this isn't just because of the divisional split in 1992. If you study college football history, for such a rivalry of such magnitude, which is Tennessee, Alabama, are historically the two most successful teams in the SEC. We would agree they are like the Michigan, Ohio State of the SEC, right?
Yes.
Well, this game, really since Robert Neyland has retired, has been largely an inconsequential game and really irrelevant. Now, the reason
usually
I say that
because one team is incredibly down, right?
Right. Usually because these two teams are never good at the same time. And it's the weirdest. That's why it's known as a series of streaks. Days, I'm sure you heard, right? It's typically since the 1960s when a team, there was a period from like 1967 all the way to 2001 where if a team won a game, it was part of at least a 4-game winning streak in the series.
Yeah.
And the reason that is the case is, they're never up at the same time. So since Robert Neyland retired, which is 70 years ago, guys, only 10 times has this game did a team cost themselves in this game a shot at the national, SEC, or even division title with a loss or a tie, because there were ties during that period. Oh, that's 1 out of 7 times.
It could happen this year.
Yes, it could happen this year. For context, Tennessee, Florida didn't start playing until 1990, 40 years after Neyland retired, and it's cost a team a shot at a division 12 times. More than Tennessee, Alabama in 70 years. And 40, you're right. Now you could say, okay, Ole Miss, Mississippi State is a rivalry. That never cost a loser a shot at the West because they're never trying to win the West. That's true, but that's because they're both irrelevant at the same time, usually.
Yeah, and this isn't Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama in the same state.
Right, exactly. This is Tennessee, Alabama, supposed to be a rivalry because of the magnitude of the series. Well, there's no magnitude. Usually one team is good and has everything to play for, and the other team is just a complete dumpster fire and is just playing to hope to get to a bowl. A majority of times throughout this history, when one team finished ranked, the other finished unranked. That's been the case. Now, the reason this rivalry has such magnitude, Dave, is when they started playing annually in 1928. From 1928 to 1952, it was a different story. That was the Wallace Wade, Frank Thomas years at Alabama, the Robert Neyland years at Tennessee, and there was a period where the winner decided the Southern Conference or SEC champion. For 13 of those first 25 games, that game decided the winner of the conference, whether it be the Southern or the SEC. So the rivalry is really rooted in the first 25 years of them playing annually. But since 1952, this series hasn't been that big of a deal, and it hasn't mattered that much. And it's only for the historical and pride perspectives. But Florida's had more of an impact. Georgia's had more of an impact. And guys, this isn't just because of the divisional split of 92. There was a 40-year period between 52 and 92 where this was the case. And part of this is Alabama has had 2 dynasty coaches in Bear Bryant and Nick Saban. When those coaches were there, those were 2 of the darkest periods of Tennessee history. My theory on this, Dave, is we talk about Georgia. There's not a lot of room for Tennessee and Alabama to be good at the same time. They recruit similar prospects.
I'll tell you what, if you want to have fun, I'll give you a little opportunity to have some free fun over the weekend. Bump into an Alabama fan and say something to the effect of, yeah, Nick Saban's been good. Even that coach before him was pretty good. And see if they can name who that is, because they probably can't. Alabama fans are nouveau riche fans. They can go old school too, but they lost about a generation. Maybe Tennessee will be like that too. Travis says, I hope Alabama never wins another game. It has mattered to me. I feel about the same way about that program.
The all-field
Simply put, the
antics of the
programs
probation also.
are never good at the same time, Caleb.
No, the golden age of Tennessee football of the modern era, the 90s and the 2000s, just happens to coincide with Alabama hiring a string of Mikes that all were terrible. And except for one who was a good coach, but he couldn't, not hang out with strippers in his hotel room. And so,
other than that, he was doing a great job, don't you think?
an amazing job. But so Dave, the question I ask you is there room? Do Tennessee and Alabama recruit too similar of prospects to where there's not room for them both to be good at the same time? Is there a recruiting factor in this?
Is there a recruiting factor between the two schools? I'm confused.
Is there a recruiting factor in the reason that neither school is ever good at the same time? Is there a recruiting reason behind that where there's just not enough room for them to be good at the same time because they recruit similar prospects when they're at their best?
That is an interesting question. I think that I think it helps in recruiting, but I don't think it helps like Alabama, Georgia. I'm sorry, like Tennessee, Georgia, or Alabama, Auburn, or Alabama, LSU. I think it has a recruiting effect, but not a massive one.
Okay, it's odd, isn't it, though, that they've never been good at the same time since the 1950s.
It is extremely odd, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And
by the way, the one period when Bear Bryant people thought he was outdated. Remember before he unveiled the wishbone? Well, you don't remember, but you probably know the history that before he unveiled the wishbone in the early 70s, he had a string of like 5 bad years and people thought he was done and that he should retire because the game had passed him by. That happened to be the Doug Dickey Renaissance years at Tennessee. So it was, it's kind of funny. Even the peak after post Neyland, Doug Dickey years was at its best. And the one great year that Tennessee had between Neyland and Dickey, 1956 with Bowden Wyatt, early Bowden Wyatt years, just happened to be the period that Alabama was at its darkest days as a football program, right before Bear Bryant came.